Cheers to you guys. What a beautiful journey we are on together. Let me do the classic, check the tech, make sure we're streaming in all the right places. All right, looking good. Hey, as you jump on, let me know how you're doing. Let me know what's happening for you in your part of the world, what's on the list for you for things to do for today. I can see we are streaming, which is fantastic news. We are in for a really deep session this session as we go into this beautiful space of the 7 sacred pathways to intimacy. We jumped deep into it in the last session, and in this session we are going to go all the way. So say all the way with me. We're going all the way, and that is fantastic. Let me know as well where you are joining from today. It's great to have people joining in from all over. Can see you guys there, so welcome. I see someone from Montana. Welcome, Verona. And yeah, so just shout out where you are and what's happening in your world today. So this session, all right, we are session 11. I'm going to pray, and then we are going to carry on deep diving right through these 7 sacred pathways to intimacy, looking at how we can create authentic expressions of heaven on earth. If you like the sound of that, then just drop authentic in the comments and let's launch into it. Jesus, Papa, Holy Spirit, we thank you for the example of the divine dance. We thank you for putting divine love on display. We thank you for even redefining for us what love really looks like. We thank you for taking us into a journey that is deeper into wisdom and understanding than we've walked before. I thank you, Holy Spirit, for speaking to us in this session in ways that go beyond what I say. Holy Spirit, I thank you for unlocking the realms, the dimensions of revelation that you would speak intimately and powerfully and directly to each of us, so that we can hear exactly what it is that you have for us right now. And we welcome your voice. We welcome you to speak to us. We welcome you to lead us and to guide us. I thank you for giving us insights in this time into how we can create safe atmospheres, how we can create authentic expressions of heaven on earth, and how we can expand the divine dance in our lives and the communities around us, the relationships around us, for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Beautiful. Well, welcome, fam, to session 3, and it is an absolute delight to be with you, and I want to honor you. It is we've got a serious series on our hands here, and just been such an honor and a delight to be sharing the journey with you, and to be getting such wonderful testimonies of what God is doing in people's lives as well. So if you haven't dropped a testimony yet of the things that God's doing in your lives, why don't you drop that in the comments? Why don't you maybe now or maybe after the session, just take a little bit of time and drop it in the comments, so that everyone else who's on the journey can share that with you and can just celebrate with you the good things that God is doing. Let me read briefly one testimony for you. I haven't really been reading many of these testimonies, but let me read one to you quickly now. Okay, here's a quick testimony for you. I have been listening to the Life Redefined and blown away at the revelation, encounters, and amazing love that is being poured out, coming from a life of extreme abuse, control, and manipulation, only knowing an angry God who I thought delighted to cause suffering. Benji's teaching has completely rocked my world and changed my perspective of who my heavenly Father is. I had such an amazing encounter today, was resting and listening to music. Jesus came and took me back to the beginning when I was a thought in his mind before I had a human form. I saw something like a seed, and the purity, beauty, and sheer joy of that seed completely overwhelmed me till I was just weeping with the love cascading through me. He also led me to break agreements with hell itself and the enemy that had bound me so many years, and then to agree with his original intent. Who he says that he is and who he says that I am. I feel different, so light on the inside. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Isn't that just wonderful, right? I'm just absolutely delighted to hear testimonies like that that's the whole dream, the whole intention of this series is to just see God jump in our lives, completely redefine them and transform them and bring us into the divine life. So that is such a great testimony. And if you've got some that you think will just encourage the family, then just encourage you, drop those in the comments and let's share them together. Righto. Well, Papa, I just thank you for that testimony, and for all those who are having those testimonies. We want to thank you, and we want to give you all the glory and all the honor. Holy Spirit, Jesus, Papa, it's you doing the work in us, and we give you all the glory for that. It's your truth that sets us free. You're the one that is liberating us and leading us, and we give you all the glory and all the honor for it. There's no one like you, and we thank you for that. And for those who are hearing that and who are longing for a fresh breakthrough of their own, fresh encounters of their own, Trinity, I ask that you swallow them up in your love right now. And I thank you for meeting them in their place of need right now and releasing your wonderful abundance. I thank you for encounters with your love. And I thank you as well. I just really feel like there's people needing healing. And in the name of Jesus, I command healing to explode through your body, that the healing anointing will explode like lightning right through you. I just see a picture of lightning breaking out right now and bringing deliverance. I see deliverance coming to people's minds in Jesus' name. So I just actually had just a word of a tormenting spirit being someone being liberated, delivered from a tormenting spirit. So this picture of lightning just flashing and this voice of just being tormenting, just going, whoosh, getting zapped by that lightning. So I thank you, Jesus, for all tormenting, lying spirits leaving in the name of Jesus, and for the spirit of wisdom and revelation to be resonant and present, resident and present around us in Jesus' name. Okay, fam, let's get right into today's session. It is going to be a wonderful adventure, and we are carrying on from yesterday, from the previous session, which is the 7 sacred pathways to intimacy. And the goal, what we're looking at and what we're exploring right now, is how can we create authentic expressions of heaven on earth, and how can we step deeper into the space of receiving divine love perfectly and giving perfect expression to divine love. It's often easier to receive divine love than it is to express divine love. But we want to figure this out. How can we actually be a mirror image of the divine love that we've experienced? How can we create communities where the divine dance expands and grows, and we actually have communities that are an authentic expression of heaven on earth, rather than orphanages, places where there's love deficit, where there's chaos, backbiting, church splits, all the drama? How can we create authentic expressions of heaven on earth in our communities? That's the heart of what we're going after. So the 7 sacred pathways, quick recap. The first, there's 4 pathways that are kind of generic to all relationships, and they are key for us to actually create authentic expressions of heaven on earth. And there's 3 of them that are specific to marriage. So let me overview the 7 sacred pathways to intimacy. The first 3, I almost feel like I'm playing charades. The first 3 sounds like, the first 3, I call them the foundational pathways. This is where we're at right now. Yesterday, in the previous session, we looked at the spiritual pathway, and we're partway through the emotional pathway, and then there's the intellectual pathway. Now, those 3 pathways are the foundational pathways, and then there's the forgotten pathway, which is the sensual pathway, and then there's the make it or break it pathways, which are the leadership pathway, the financial pathway, and the sexual pathway. Righto. In the emotional pathway, in the previous session, there's 3 things that we're really covering, and those 3 things are creating safe atmospheres. And the second one is love, honor, trust, and respect, and we're just about to arrive there. And then the third one is really highlighting vulnerability. So in creating safe atmospheres, so say with me, safe atmospheres. Safe atmospheres, we had a look in that previous session at that, just talked about that picture I had seen of a snail, a little baby snail that was just all its antennae right out, thriving, living the dream. And the mummy snail, antennae right out, thriving, living the dream. Such a great picture of safety. And it's the opposite when the snail gets scared, when they feel unsafe, they retract right inside their shell. So creating safe atmospheres, there's 4 key parts to that. One is having safe agreements, safe agreements that are going to lead to safe, well, the next part is safe brains, right? We talked about amygdala hijacks and our mental processing, making sure we're not those people who are flipping out all the time. That's so easy to create an unsafe relationship when someone has an amygdala hijack. Talked about chemical reactions and emotions and behaviors, what you do, what you say, how you relate. Is this safe or unsafe behaviors that's producing a safe or an unsafe atmosphere? And the key, right, the value of creating safety in the atmosphere around us, the value of that is that the level of safety in an atmosphere determines the level of vulnerability that we feel comfortable to bring into that atmosphere. So the level of vulnerability that we're operating in determines our ability to receive and to express love. So vulnerability, it just looks like bringing down all the walls. Now, it's not always a good idea to bring down all your walls. Sometimes it's a great idea to have some walls up in a sense. If you need to maybe have some boundaries in place that are there keeping you safe. But oftentimes, when we talked about this in the orphan illusion, people caught in the orphan illusion, they're so focused on keeping themselves safe that they put up all these walls to keep themselves safe. But then these walls that they put up to keep them safe become the very same walls that actually keep them isolated. So out of a fear of rejection, people sentence themselves to a lifetime of isolation. And what we're wanting to do by creating safe atmospheres is create a space where people actually feel safe enough to let their walls come down, because as long as those walls are up, there's not going to be any receiving or expressing of divine love, because it only takes place in that context of vulnerability, which organically bubbles up in the context of safe atmospheres. So I want to talk to you next, as we kind of wrap up the emotional pathway, is I want to share with you some communication skills that create safe atmospheres. All right, so say communication skills, that's right. And you've possibly heard this before, but we are going to be looking at the I feel and I need statements. And here's something about intimacy, right? Is that intimacy, which there's different types of intimacy, right? You can have obviously, marital intimacy or whatever, but we don't even have to be talking about that in terms of intimacy, but intimacy really is, Danny Silk says it like this: into me you see. And if we want to have healthy relationships, they require intimacy. But you're only ever going to get intimacy if you get good information, right? So intimacy is this clear, transparent, good information that you're going to give to other people. But if you want good information from people, right, if you really want to hear people's hearts well, then you're going to have to be able to create a space where they feel vulnerable enough to give you good information, and that comes out of safe atmosphere. So we create safe atmospheres. People feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and then we need to bring some wisdom in to build intimacy and understand that that intimacy is built on good information. And that's not actually just as easy as it sounds right now, right? Good information. This is where Alana and I were stuck for a while. And if you step back a bit, right, we've just looked at in the previous session, like our brains need to kind of be operating safely and our chemicals need to be safe, because in this process that Alana, where I was, let me get into a classic story. I shared this with you already, but we would be in this place where, say, Alana's turned me down from sex, and then I'm trying really hard not to shut off from her, right? I was in this place of like, oh, I don't want to shut off from you because I know that I'm in a place right now where I could I'd actually like to punish you. There's there's something in me was like, I've been turned down, I've been rejected, and I really in me, I was like, oh, I should, there's this like tendency to want to punish her by shutting off and isolating and saying, right, well then I'll disappear inside myself. So I fought that, right? I was trying my best to do a good thing and fight that. And so I was like, hey, instead of me doing that, let me get really vulnerable with you, Alana. Let me really give you like my heart of hearts and how I'm doing and feeling right now in this moment, so we can still try and be connected. So I'm at this place of just my most vulnerable, but I was, for Alana, she was feeling really unsafe. So she was having an amygdala hijack was triggering, which means she didn't have access to her frontal cortex, right? So she's got she can't even she's in fight or flight mode, and she's just kind of just looking at me, and she couldn't even answer me, and this would go on for ages, and I'll be like, what, you've got nothing to say to me, I've poured out my heart, you've got nothing, and then I would just really start hurting, the pain would then go to another level for me. It was actually my fault, right, in a sense, because I was trying to communicate with her while she's having an amygdala hijack. And I didn't realize this. It wasn't until a long time after that we realized this, but I was trying to give her good information in an unsafe atmosphere. And so there's no chance that it was going to work. I was trying to build intimacy with good information and being vulnerable, but she was feeling completely unsafe. She was triggering. She was having an amygdala hijack. And so it wasn't working. So in this space, if you want to build intimacy with someone, you want to give good information, then it really is going to require that it's founded on a safe atmosphere for both people. So good information is an invitation to intimacy. It's key that we get this right, okay? So you want to build intimacy? Right, fantastic. Start with a safe atmosphere. Make sure that both people are feeling safe. After that, vulnerability is a necessity, And why is vulnerability a necessity? Vulnerability is a necessity because that is how you're going to give someone good information of exactly how you're feeling about the relationship, how you're feeling in the context. So we want good information, and that good information is what intimacy is built on, because then you truly know someone. You're not relating to them, on the context of a facade or a fake relationship. You're going deep and real and authentic. So this tool here, you may have heard of them. Say, I feel, I need, right? This is the I feel, I need statements, and they are really, really helpful at simplifying the process of giving people really good information. Maybe there's been something unsafe happen or something, or you're trying to problem solve something, but you want to, maybe you need to communicate with someone about a boundary or something, but you're in this place where you need to give someone some good information. My first recommendation is calm down. All right, calm down. Step it down, class. Make sure that both people are calm. Make sure that both people are feeling safe. And if we think about this as well in a, maybe we think about this in a church context, right? Or a community context or a family context. Maybe you think about it in your family, or it could be in a marriage context. But we want to create authentic expressions of heaven on earth where our relationships mirror the divine dance modeled by the Trinity. And it's going to take some work, and sometimes we fail at that. And then sometimes we're just growing in it. So if you're in the process of growing, or if you're in the process of reconciling or tidying something up, then this becomes a really, really valuable process. So first of all, make sure everyone's calm and no one's triggering. Otherwise, you'll end up with what Alana and I had. I was communicating all of this stuff. She's receiving nothing because she's triggering and having an amygdala hijack. The process also of starting to give good information can be terrifying for a lot of people. Let me know if you feel like, if you get a call from someone and you got to go in and sit in the office and they want to give you some good information, maybe some constructive feedback, or you don't know why they've called you, but they want to give you some feedback, or they've organized a meeting for something. Who's like noticed, like, yeah, that's scary. I've felt afraid when I get called into an office or someone organizes a meeting. It's like, oh my gosh, what's this? It's often a place where people feel really, really terrified when they're being confronted. And so this process of communication is often like, it's part of its confrontation as well. So you have to be really conscious of the fact that when you're communicating with someone, they could be absolutely terrified. So you're gonna have to go to the next level of creating that safety. And then when that vulnerability comes and you're being vulnerable and giving people good information, you've got to be so conscious of the fact that people might be having an amygdala hijack in that moment. So they might not be taking anything in because they might already be totally terrified. And so it might take a few attempts, and it might take some attempts at building that safety to be able to get to that point where a person's actually going to be able to receive what you're saying. So you can't rush this. You definitely can't do it if you're angry, otherwise people are going to be triggering. And you have to watch yourself as well, because there's this classic old song, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And that's what gets results. So if you want the results of an actual authentic expression of heaven on earth, then you're going to have to really take extreme ownership for yourself in how you're communicating what you're about to communicate when you give good information. So say, I feel, I need. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example now of the I feel, I need statements. And these are designed to be able to give people good information in a safe way that hopefully they can receive it without feeling attacked without triggering. And then when you provide that good information to them, it's actually an invitation to them to come and build greater intimacy with you. It's an invitation for them to build trust and respect in your relationship and expand that level of intimacy. Here we go. Are you ready? So there's 4 I feel I need statements. Say that with me. 4 I feel I need statements. The first statement, and this is a structure, a framework for you for delivering this good information. Maybe you're this is classically used to address an unsafe something. Maybe there's something that someone's doing that you feel unsafe with or uncomfortable with, and you're like, man, we need to, if we want to go deeper in relationship, this can't be happening all the time because it's making me feel unsafe. So that's when you're going to bring in these I feel I need statements. Well, it doesn't have to be an extreme context. It can just be a pattern for you of giving people information, good information in a safe way without them feeling attacked or threatened, and then triggering. So statement number 1, say that with me. Statement number 1 is, when you did this, I felt like this. Now, it's really important that when you make this statement, when you did this, you're highlighting specifically the behavior, the words, the action, whatever it is that's making you feel uncomfortable, whatever that feeling is. When you did this, I felt this. And so it's really, you got to be really conscious of the fact that you're not laying any attack on a person, saying, you are a bad person and you make me feel unsafe. Okay, that's going to wreck things straight away. It's going to blow things up, triggering all sorts. And it's probably going to be the end of the conversation. It's not very good information. It's delivered in a threatening and attacking way, and people are going to be already tense and on edge, and then boom, they'll have an amygdala hijack, and who knows what can go wrong from that place. Statement number 1, here's an example of that. Say there's a husband and a wife scenario. The wife says, I felt unsafe when you drove the car at twice the speed limit on the way home today. A husband might say, when you spend $5,000 on jewelry without talking to me, I felt unsafe. So it's a specific action and then a specific feeling of how you felt. And statement number 2 is giving some clarity to your feelings. All right. So statement number 2 would start like this. I felt unsafe because, right? So statement number 2 is a great opportunity to get vulnerable and give the person great information about exactly how their action or behavior made you feel. Okay. So I felt unsafe because, and here's an example of this. So the wife, carrying on from that example, could say, I felt unsafe because I felt ignored. I felt out of control. I felt in danger of death. I felt in danger of riding off the car. I felt in danger of hurting someone else, and I felt in danger of getting fined. The husband, in relation to that jewelry example, could say, I felt unsafe because I felt important. I felt irrelevant. I felt afraid. I felt frustrated. I felt left out of the conversation. I felt like our dreams were being compromised. So it's about giving a person really good information and ensuring that there's no attack whatsoever. It's just offering that person, here's vulnerability. Here's a lot of vulnerability. Here's how I'm doing in this situation. Remember Danny Silk's quote, intimacy is into me, you see. So it's, here it is. Here's how I'm doing as a result of this. Statement number 3, right, is I need to feel. And this is a wonderful opportunity to let the other person know exactly how you want to feel, what's going to make you feel safe. And it's giving them a powerful opportunity to actually build the relationship and build safety. It's giving them an opportunity to build trust with you, an opportunity to see if they value what you value your feelings. And the real focus is to let the person know all the feelings that make you feel unsafe. Okay, a lot of people simply say, I need to feel safe. But the idea of this statement here is to kind of really unpack it and elaborate for a person and give them really good information. Like, to feel safe, I need to feel appreciated. I need to feel celebrated. So you're giving them all of those bits of information that your heart's craving. So here's some examples for this one. Okay, so statement number 3 examples. So the wife could say, I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I am not in danger of death, in danger of car accidents, in danger of hurting other people, or in danger of being fined. So it's just elaborating more information. The husband, and remember, this doesn't have to be a wife or a husband. It can be any situation or scenario where you're giving feedback to people. I need to feel safe. I need to feel important. I need to feel included in the conversation. I need to feel like we agree with how we spend our money, and I need to feel like we are working on our dreams together. All right, so now they've kind of got lots of information about how you're feeling, and statement number 4 is then giving them some opportunity to really make you feel safe. So it's more good information. I feel safe when. Okay, say that with me. I feel safe when. So that's the statement of the state. That's the start of the statement. I feel safe when, and then examples of that would be, I feel safe when you drive at the speed limit, or the husband, I feel safe when we make our money decisions together. All right, Danny Silk, let's give another quote from Danny Silk. Trying to convince someone to care about your needs without being vulnerable enough to communicate them is a fear-driven exercise in futility. Let me give you that again. So listen to Danny Silk. Trying to convince someone to care about your needs without being vulnerable enough to communicate them is a fear-driven exercise in futility. So those 4 I statements, let me whip them straight back to you again if you wanted to write them down or anything like that. The structure is, when you did this, I felt. So when you did ... I felt ... You fill in the blanks. Statement number 1. Statement number 2. I felt unsafe because ... You fill in the blanks. Statement number 3. I need to feel ... You fill in the blanks. And statement number 4. I feel safe when ... Right. So if you want to get like the notes on this and get all of this, then just grab the 7 Sacred Pathways to Intimacy book, and the link to that is in the description of the video if you want to go and get all these notes. Sweet. Well, that's our that is the kind of the wrap up of creating safe atmospheres. Okay, there was those 4 points to creating safe atmospheres. Making sure we've got safe agreements, making sure that we, like we're not having amygdala hijacks and freaking out, right? So we've got actually got a safe brain and safe mental processing. So we're not just like flipping out, making sure that our chemical reactions and our emotions are safe. We're not trying to punish people with our emotions. We're not creating a negative atmosphere with our emotions, but our chemicals and our emotions are safe. And then fourthly, that our behaviors are safe. And so that does require, to be able to journey in that and create safe atmospheres, that requires a communication dance and giving people good information as to how they can continue to help make you feel safe. Now that is as well like a double-edged sword as well, in a sense of like, a person can feel unsafe sometimes just because they're insecure, and sometimes they feel unsafe because it's genuinely unsafe. And that's something for us as individuals that we need to really ask ourselves, hey, am I feeling unsafe here simply because I'm insecure and I've got an irrational fear in play here? That's something that we need to take extreme ownership for ourselves and say, hey, is it really that the other person is acting unsafe, or the environment is unsafe, or is the environment really dangerous, or is this actually me with a false agreement and that's producing an irrational fear? For example, the young lady that we've used as an example a few times with the mouse, right? She totally freaked out, jumped up on a table, threw her drink bottle across the cafe, screaming because of the mouse, while everyone else was just looking at it going, oh, that's interesting. So that's something to consider when you're feeling unsafe. Is this actually an unsafe environment, or is this something in me that's triggering that I'm going to have to go away and work on me, rather than, you know, blame shifting and making my feeling of unsafety everyone else's problem when it's actually me triggering. So that's a big self-awareness moment where we have to take extreme ownership and just double check, hey, is this me? Because sometimes people mistake that. They mistake it and they think, oh, wow, I feel unsafe, therefore someone's doing something wrong. But it can sometimes just be that we have an irrational fear, and we have to check that out. All right, sweet. So that ticks the box on communication skills that create safe atmospheres, choice. And our next little subheading here of a topic that we're going to touch on is love, honor, trust, and respect. Okay, so say that with me: love, honor, trust, and respect. This is such a major key in creating healthy relationships, really. And well, let's start, right? Let's start with love and honor, okay? And we'll give a bit of definition to that. So love expresses acceptance, and honor expresses value. And love and honor are the most natural behaviors for a person who is walking in their identity, walking in their God-given sonship, right? Other people may be unsafe, dysfunctional, or inappropriate, but their behavior doesn't control our behavior, all right? So we might walk into a situation and there's all sorts of people. They're dysfunctional, they're inappropriate, they're unsafe, but for a person who walks in and understands love and honor, other people's behavior doesn't determine whether or not they will keep their love on or whether or not they will be honorable. They keep their love on because they understand that that's their identity. They are love, and they keep their honor on because they are honorable people. So they're not going to be stepping out of it. So when you're secure in your identity, you understand who you are. Love and honor are always turned on. Okay, that's not something that other people ever get to control you when you're living in a healthy lifestyle, when you're living in your sonship. Other people don't get to control whether or not you walk in love and honor. That's who you are, and that's how you express yourself at all times. Now, we have to kind of explore that, because love's a spectrum, right? There is a spectrum of love, and Christians get this wrong a lot. So love is gentle and compassionate, but love is also as bold as a lion. Say that for me. Love is as bold as a lion. And that's probably the thing that people miss the most about love, is that love, as well as being gentle and compassionate, love is as bold as a lion. So there's a whole spectrum there of what love looks like. And that's probably one of the biggest questions for me in my life, is trying to be, you know, an authentic expression of love, and asking, okay, what does love look like in my marriage? What does love look like in my parenting? What does love look like in my business? What does love look like in ministry? What does love look like in my community? What does love look like? And trying to personify that. And sometimes love is as bold as a lion. And Jesus, and honor too. Jesus defined for us what honor looks like. So he expressed value for lepers and the least in society, but he also called out national leaders as vipers. So honor expresses value to all people, but it also calls out unsafe behavior for exactly what it is. So honor expresses value, but honor never ignores unsafe behavior. This is such a key point, right? Honor expresses value, but honor never ignores unsafe behavior. So honor is not going to shut its eyes when someone's living in dysfunction. Honor sees people the way that God sees them before they see themselves that way. And honor recognizes the intrinsic value of a person's humanity and speaks worth and dignity and value over people. And we are responsible to carry honor into all our relationships. Here's one of the big differences between, a person who walks in honor and, like Satan, right? Satan's called the accuser. So honor doesn't step into the place of accusing people falsely. And one of the key things that's different, right, between honor calling out dysfunctional behavior and between accusations that, belong to the satanic realm, is that honor will kind of use communication skills like what we've just talked about, right? Honor will clearly identify, hey, this is the behavior, it's unsafe. This is what that behavior is. It'll just really clearly label the behavior as that is unsafe. Whereas accusation is different, because accusation tries to use the behavior or anything like that as an attack on someone's identity, right? It tries to turn it into an identity statement and attack a person. Now, Jesus said, hey, you guys are like vipers, right? When he's calling them vipers, but it wasn't an identity statement. It was describing their behavior as like, hey, this is twisted, this is corrupt, and they were corrupt and they were behaving like vipers. So he was actually calling out behavior as opposed to making an accusation about someone's identity. And that's what you're going to find is that, we talked about this earlier, is that relativity fuses behavior and identity together with one. Well, that's what accusation does as well. It tries to attack us and accuse us and cause us to come to a false belief about our identity and believe a lie about who we are so that we feel terrible. Honor's never going to do that. Honor is like love, right? It's gentle, it's compassionate, it's honest, but it's also as bold as a lion. So it's not there to cover up things. It's not there to hide things. It's not there to pretend that things are okay when they're not okay. All right. Love and honor. We are responsible to walk in love and honor. That's our job. Okay, that's what we're always called to bring into a relationship. And I think maybe there's a couple of parables here that set Christians up to be doormats in marriages, especially if you see this so often for Christian ladies in marriages that get really dysfunctional, and they've had these different mindsets or teachings that set them up to be victims. So one of them would be the concept of turning the other cheek, right? Turn the other cheek. If someone slaps you on one side, Jesus said, if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn the other. Let me pull this up for you. And the other parable, so we're going to look at two parables right now, turning the other cheek, and then also going the extra mile. All right. So Matthew 5, if you want to come with me on the Bible adventure, Matthew 5, 38 to 40. You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. But this concept here, if anyone wants to slap you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Now, people think that that's Jesus is saying, okay, let people slap you twice, let them treat you however you want, and you just have to be the doormat. Well, actually, what was happening there in the culture of the day is that if someone wanted to slap you on the right cheek, all right, if they wanted to slap you on the right cheek, that was a term of disrespect, okay? That was them speaking down to you and saying, hey, you're less than who I am. You belong to a lower class of people, all right? You don't belong to my class. So if they're going to slap you on the right side of the cheek, right? So that would be using, I can't even think of it. So never mind what I was going to say. But if someone was going to slap you on the left side of the cheek, what that meant is that they considered you an equal. Okay, so they slap you on the left side of the cheek, and they are considering you an equal. If they slap you on the right side of the cheek, they're considering you as someone as a lower class. And so what Jesus is saying, if someone wants to try and slap you on the right cheek, turn to them the left cheek so that they will have to treat you as an equal. What he was really saying in that parable is, never let anyone speak down to you. Don't let people disrespect you. Don't let people speak down to you at all. Okay, now how crazy is that? It's the exact opposite meaning of what people have interpreted it to mean is, hey, just let people completely disrespect you and have no respect for yourself and have no boundaries. Okay, let people do whatever they want to you. And so many Christians have kind of carried that mindset and just ended up in these dysfunctional relationships. And it's being justified by verses like that. Oh, I just turned the other cheek, and I just let someone disrespect me and abuse me because I was following Jesus' teachings. But Jesus' teaching is not actually to let people abuse you or disrespect you. His teaching is actually, listen, if anyone's going to communicate to you, they're going to communicate to you on the basis that you are an equal, and it's going to be eye to eye as a peer, and they're going to have to communicate to you with some respect. Now, the other one is going the second mile, right? This parable about going the second mile. So Jesus, when he told this parable, he was telling this parable to people in the context of a Roman occupation. Okay, so there was a Roman occupation at play there, and one of the things that the Romans would do is they would be walking through. Maybe they're just walking through the village and they see someone there, and they would say, hey, carry all of my gear for a mile. And the Roman soldiers were allowed to have just say to someone, hey, carry my gear for a mile. And they would have to carry their equipment, their baggage, all of that for a mile. So they carry all that for a mile, and they have to walk back and carry on with their day. And Jesus is actually speaking to people who are sick of that happening to them. And he said, hey, if one of these guys comes along to you, don't just carry their bag 1 mile, carry it for them 2 miles. So let me, and I'll tell you why that was really interesting. The reason that's really interesting is because if a Roman soldier forced someone to carry their equipment more than 1 mile, they would get fined, okay? So they would actually get fined, and it would be deducted from their wages if they forced anyone to carry their equipment more than 1 mile. So what Jesus was really doing when he told them to carry their equipment a second mile, he's like, okay, carry it 1 mile. And then we get to that, like you're just starting crossing into that second mile, then just start going for it, get that second mile in, because what's going to start happening is they're going to realize, flip, all these Jews, they carry our bags 2 miles. And every time they do that, we get fined and our wages get deducted. And so what Jesus is saying is like, get a reputation as those who go 2 miles, and then the soldiers will leave you alone because they don't want to get fined. They'll just go and pick on someone else. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Flip the script when you hear that. I was like, wow, when I heard that, I was like, man, that's amazing. It's just a complete flip of that passage from what you kind of taught. So with love and honor, this is so key, that when we approach relationships, in any relationship, we bring love and honor. Okay, that's who we are. We bring love and honor, and we can expect love and honor to be brought to the relationship as well. So love and honor, though, right? Love and honor look really, really different to trust and respect. And we're going to hit trust and respect in a second, but a lot of relationships tolerate unsafe emotions and unsafe behaviors. And if we justify our own unsafe behaviors and unsafe emotions, then our whole, like, it could be the marriage, it could be the family, it could be the community, it could be the church, or whatever it is. If you start justifying unsafe behaviors and unsafe emotions, then this whole place ends up being in this place that it's actually starts getting dysfunctional. So love and honor, they aren't there to be like compromised. You're not supposed to ever compromise on calling out evil, on calling out dysfunction, on calling out emotional dysfunction. You're not there to like be in a marriage or a community where someone is acting out like there's some dysfunction there, and you go, oh, hey, I'll just turn the other cheek. Boom, I'll let them disrespect me, you know, for the sake of the community or whatever. No, love and honor will always call out unsafe behavior. And for a lot of people, that seems terrifying to call someone out, like, oh, I really don't like confrontation. I'm afraid of that. But listen, that's what a big part of what love and honor is. And that's why love and honor are also as bold as a lion, because they will not compromise on unsafe, unhealthy behaviors and emotions and atmospheres. They call it out. Okay, so that's a real big deal. Now you're called, you're responsible to be the one who shows up carrying love and honor. But at the same time, when you come to a relationship, you can show up to a relationship in any context, and you can have an that at bare minimum, at the baseline, right? The baseline of what any relationship or atmosphere or community that you go into, as the bare minimum baseline, you can expect love and honor. And if you don't receive love and honor, if you're not treated with love and honor, you can expect, like you are within your rights in any context to actually say, hey, this is a dysfunctional baseline. This needs to be restored. Like love and honor need to actually be restored in this place to actually make it feel like it, actually make it a safe atmosphere. But it's, again, you're required, right? This is your requirement as part of a healthy person to create an authentic expression of heaven on earth. You must bring love and honor into that context yourself. So trust and respect are different things though, all right? We can love and honor people in their mess, right? So we can go to a place, right? Maybe we've got a family member or a friend who's just in a complete mess, and we can love and honor them in their mess, all right? There's no strings attached. These are unconditional. Love and honor are going to be unconditional. Now, they might not just be fluffy ducks. They might be as bold as a lion, but they're going to be unconditional. But trust and respect cannot be given to a person like love and honor can be, okay? Trust and respect are entirely the responsibility of the other person in the relationship. Love and honor is all on you, all right? You're responsible to bring love and honor as the baseline of who you are, as the baseline of your relationships, as the baseline of your interaction communities. You're responsible to bring love and honor. But trust and respect is entirely dependent on the other person's behavior towards you, or the other the other party's behavior towards you. So you don't have to earn love and honor from me, right? Love and honor are a baseline of how I'd operate, but and it's my responsibility to walk in love and honor at all times, regardless of other people's behavior. Okay, now this is the type of things that powerful people do. Powerful people keep their love on. Powerful people keep their honor on, regardless of other people's behavior. But when it comes to trust and respect, it's all on you, okay? If you want intimacy with me, trust and respect are not negotiable, all right? They are non-negotiables, and they're entirely dependent on you. So you can earn, in a relationship, you can earn respect through safe behavior, right? So you earn respect through safe behavior, and you earn trust through consistent safe behavior. Okay, you earn respect through safe behavior, and you earn trust through consistent safe behavior. And it's the same, in our relationship with God. He loves us and he honors us in our darkness, in our mess, in our chaos. But trust and respect are a process, right? That's going to grow. Romans 5:10, right? So if while we were God's enemies, God fully reconciled us to himself through his death, then something greater than friendship is ours. So he loved us in our mess and in our chaos, but trust, respect, and intimacy are going to be things that grow. the parable of the talents and the miners, all right? Those parables there where they've got to actually take those out and steward them well. Well, they're not there to earn, those parables are not about earning love or acceptance, right? They're about earning respect and trust. So there's a difference, like God's love and his honor and his acceptance towards us, totally unconditional. But trust and respect is things that are going to grow as we steward well. Favor will grow by how we steward what we've been given. So say, for example, there's a person struggling with addictions in my, say they're a friend of mine, they're struggling with addictions, they're lying to me. Well, I can still love them in that, maybe they're stealing from me as well. I can still love them. I can still honor them. That doesn't mean that I'm going to say, hey, that behavior is okay. I'm going to call the behavior and say, hey, man, I love you. That behavior is okay. I still honor you for who you are, see their value, honoring them, loving them, but I can't trust them, can I? Because they're stealing from me. And if we get these wrong and we start trusting people who can't be trusted, then we're going to get burned really badly. And it is fair to expect when you go into a relationship to be treated with love and honor, right? That's fair, but it's not fair to expect anyone just to trust and respect you without first earning it, right? This is where expectations get messed up so often. And being married for a long time is also not justification for demanding trust and respect, because we'd been married for years and we'd spent that whole time destroying each other's trust and respect, and we had to build it back, right? It was a complete mess, and so it took a really long time to build back trust and respect, and it meant that I had to consistently demonstrate safe behaviors, safe emotions, and create safe atmospheres in order for that trust and respect to grow back. All right. The best way to steward trust and respect is by consistently listening to and implementing the good information that you are receiving from the people that you're in relationship with, right? So you've got those 4 communication tools that we just talked about, the I need, I feel statements. Those 4 statements are a great way to start building trust and respect. So when someone gives you good information and they've gone to that effort of giving you good information, that's an opportunity for you to build intimacy by building trust and respect. If you fail to actually respond well, and then if they give you good information and you don't actually steward that good information, and you just throw it in their face, or they've given you good information saying, hey, I feel unsafe when you do, this particular behavior here makes me feel unsafe, and you've been given that good information, and then you keep repeating the behavior, then you can expect that the favor you have with that person is going to diminish. The trust, the respect is all going to go out the window. You shouldn't expect that love and honor will be turned off, but you could actually expect that love and honor might start becoming more and more like a lion, right? Even though the love is on, it's going to start getting bold. It's going to start getting confronting, calling out the dysfunction, saying, hey, and then love and honor might start putting boundaries in place around dysfunctional behavior. Because sometimes if a person can't have healthy boundaries themselves, if they can't implement healthy boundaries themselves, you walking in love and honor are actually going to have to put and implement healthy boundaries in place for them, because if you don't, they will tear your world apart. They will set your world apart. Sometimes it's going to be different with everyone, but there you go. If a person is consistently demonstrating unsafe behavior and you don't put a boundary in place to protect yourself from that unsafe behavior, one, you justify it. You actually become an enabler of that behavior. So they actually, you are actually making it worse for them. You're enabling that behavior. And then the other thing is that behavior is going to burn you, right? It's unsafe for a reason. It's unsafe because it's going to get dangerous, and you're going to be the one that suffers. So healthy boundaries. Say that with me, fam. Say healthy boundaries. Hey. All right, healthy boundaries. jumping in here, just checking something on the streaming. All right. So healthy boundaries. Okay. Healthy boundaries. This is what we're going to look at now. Is this next phase, healthy boundaries. How do we put healthy boundaries in place? So we understand that when we come into a relationship, a community of some sort, there's an expectation. We can have an expectation of love and honor as the baseline for that. And how love and honor is also the foundation for healthy boundaries. Now, some people are so used to being treated badly by unsafe people that they accept being treated without love and honor. Okay, if you've grown up in that place, or you've lived a long time in that place of being treated unsafely, then you have actually had your baseline for expectations and relationships distorted, and you've picked up a dysfunctional agreement in that place, which says, and a dysfunctional agreement is, it's okay if people treat me without love and honor, but it's not, all right? It's never going to be okay for people to treat you without love and honor. And so you actually have to make sure that baseline is in place. And that might be breaking some dysfunctional agreements for you. If you've agreed that people are allowed to treat you without love and honor, people are not allowed to treat me without love and honor. All right. If they treat me without love and honor, that's going to lead, first of all, to me communicating with them. And I'll use those statements. It could lead to a courageous conversation. Now, people don't like confrontation. Drop in the comments if you like confrontation. If you like confrontation, just drop confrontation in the comments. Most people are pretty happy to go a day without confrontation. Most people are quite happy to never step into a place of confrontation. But it is part of healthy, it's part of living with love and honor, is being able to call out dysfunction when someone is acting inappropriately. Love's not going to cover that up. Love's going to call it out and working towards restoring safe atmospheres and all those beautiful things. When you accept being treated without love or honor, one, it reveals that you've got dysfunctional agreements, but two, it also empowers dysfunctional behavior of other people to then just keep on doing all this dysfunctional stuff. They're going to get worse and worse. You're going to get worse and worse. When we do that, we just continue to lower the standard and the culture around our world and enable all this dysfunctional behavior. What we want to do is break the cycle. Chris Vallotton has a great quote on this. Actually, he says, "Forgiveness restores the standard in our lives." Forgiveness restores the standard in our lives. But forgiveness, there's not even space for forgiveness without confrontation, because you can't ask for forgiveness for something that you haven't taken ownership of. You can't ask for forgiveness for something that you haven't acknowledged. All right. So this means that whatever the behavior is, it's going to have to be confronted. There's going to have to be courageous conversations taking place, and you're going to have to highlight and identify where the issues are. And sometimes when you do that, people respond beautifully. You can use those statements that we've looked at: I feel, I need. And sometimes people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that when I did this, you felt like this, and that you need to feel like this, and that if I do this, you will feel like this." Well, I'm happy to take that information on board, and I'll do that right away. No problem. Would you please forgive me for that? You can forgive them. It restores the standard, right? The baseline to the culture is back to a safe, healthy culture, atmosphere. This is great. It's moving along great. But other people, you try to confront them and they'll have a completely different response. Even if you do it well, you've taken care that they're not having an amygdala hijack, and you're calm, and you've taken all that into consideration. You've communicated really well, and then they might still just flip out and not be interested at all and coming back into a place of safe behavior. They're like, nah, stuff you, I'm not interested. I don't want to behave safe, be safe. It doesn't mean, your safety is not important enough for me to change my behavior. Okay, so at that point, when a person is obviously doesn't care enough about your safety to change their behavior, then a boundary needs to be put in place. Now, this is a crazy concept, even in a marriage, right? Even in a marriage, sometimes you have to put a boundary in place if the culture in that marriage, and it can be any relationship or any community, but if the culture or the behavior is unsafe, you're going to have to put in a boundary there that's designed to protect you from that unsafe behavior. Now, the purpose of boundaries is to protect what we value. Now, if you're not putting boundaries up and you're in that place of unsafe behavior, it reveals the fact that you've got a false agreement with your own value and that you're not protecting your own values. Or maybe there's kids involved and you've got a false agreement that's not protecting the children, but you actually are called to be a person who establishes healthy boundaries in your sphere of influence. If this is your world and you're living in it, then you're the one that has to step up to the plate and establish a safe environment. And if the other people in that environment aren't going to be safe, then it's on you to bring the healthy boundaries. Now, you might start with communication. That's what Jesus said. He said, hey, if someone's causing some chaos and you've got some issues, go to them one-on-one and chat with them. If that won't work, take some supervision. He said, take some other people with you and just say, hey, can we, will supervision help if, or just a mediator help in this chat to, try and get some reconciliation. If that's not happening, then it's going to be time for boundaries. So we can't have healthy boundaries without first having healthy confrontation. So first thing is you got to have confrontation, you got to communicate, and you got to communicate well, you got to communicate safely. And boundaries, it's really important to understand that boundaries are not there to punish people. Boundaries are there to show people the way home. Now, oftentimes you get Christians who hear the language of boundaries and they're like, yeah, cool, I'll be a good person, I'll put boundaries in place, but actually they're weaponizing boundaries and they're actually just using the boundaries to punish people. So you got to be really aware that boundaries are not there to punish anyone. Boundaries are there to show us the way home, back to, hey, this makes me feel safe. And as I feel safe and you behave safely, you'll build trust and respect. This will create the context for more vulnerability, and this will create the context for more good information. This is an invitation to build intimacy so that we can create a context where there's an unbroken cycle of divine love, where our walls can be down, we're receiving and expressing divine love perfectly and beautifully, and we're creating an authentic expression of heaven on earth. So this process of actually confrontation and healthy boundaries and trust and respect and love and honor is, I would suggest to you that it's probably more critical in the process of bringing an authentic expression of heaven to earth than signs and wonders and miracles are. Okay, now signs and wonders and miracles are amazing for expanding the territory of the kingdom. They're great for evangelism, they're great for breakthrough, they're great for bringing down satanic and powers, they're great for all of those things. But that's their role, right, is expansion. And also they're just amazing, right? They reveal the glory of God. There's so many good things about signs and wonders, but really what they accomplish, right, that can't be replaced by signs and wonders. What can't be replaced by signs and wonders and supernatural goodness is healthy relationships, all right? You've got these skills in place to be able to put healthy boundaries in place, to actually identify, okay, hey, this is an unsafe behavior, to actually communicate. You need those skills, and they're so critical because actually the ability to create authentic expression rests on these skills that I'm teaching you right now. So boundaries, they're actually often perverted by couples and perverted by Christians and used to punish people rather than to show the way home of this is, hey, if you stick to this boundary, what's going to happen is you're going to build respect with me. And if you're consistent with that, that'll actually build trust with me. I'll start feeling really safe with you. That'll mean that, we'll actually be able to healthier, more beautiful relationship. We'll both feel safer. There'll be more good information. There'll be more vulnerability, and we actually build intimacy together. So that's what we want with boundaries. But there's 4 classic ways that people punish each other. All right. And I just want to look at these because punishment is the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve with boundaries. So let me highlight some 4 classic punishments, and with the point of highlighting that boundaries are not here to punish, they're here to show us the way home. So the first way that we punish people is through aggressive reactions, right? Unsafe emotions and behaviors, physical, sexual, mental, or verbal abuse, rage, emotions, loss of temper. That's an aggressive reaction that's used to punish someone. Now, the second one is passive aggressive reactions, right? So, going all silent, the silent treatment, creating distance, rejection, isolating from people, or just becoming unreliable, like fake agreements, like, yeah, but no, I don't actually mean it. Yes, I'll be there. I'm not going to be there. You say yes, but you're going to completely do another thing. Number 3 is devaluing behavior. Sarcasm, cynicism, criticizing, shaming, and focusing on the negative of a person. And the 4th one is revenge. Say revenge. Who's ever taken revenge on someone? I've taken revenge on people a couple of times, not so much for a long time, but as a kid, I used to take revenge every now and then. So revenge, destructive behaviors, like an eye for an eye, like you were going to go out to get this person. So there's 4 classic ways that people punish people. And sometimes we mistake boundaries as just another way that we can punish people, but that's the exact opposite. Boundaries about showing people the way home. So let me get to an example of setting some boundaries. Okay. Here's an example. We looked just before when we went through those I statements about I feel I need. We used one example of a wife whose husband was speeding, and she gave him, went through that process of all the I feel I need statements. Say, for example, he refused to listen to her. Now this, I want you to just think about how this could be applied in any situation, but let's just say, for example's sake, that the husband refused to listen to the wife and he kept on behaving badly. Now that's when the wife, he keeps on speeding. He doesn't care about how scared she is in the car. He keeps on driving unsafely. And despite how much she's communicated it, she's like, wow, he has really crossed the line here. He's not listening to any of the feedback. He's not able to behave safely himself. He's not able to put the boundary in place for himself. So unfortunately for him, I'm going to have to put the boundary on my husband. So here's an example of what that could sound like for her as an example of a boundary. If you continue to break the law when you are driving, I will no longer be a passenger in a car that you are driving. When you are willing to drive safely and legally, I will be happy to be a passenger in a car that you are driving. Until then, I'm either driving or we will be in separate vehicles. All right, now that's a great boundary, and it's got 4 pieces of good information in it, okay? 1, it clarifies and states very clearly what the unsafe behavior is. 2, it states exactly what you need. 3, it states the consequences for continued unsafe behavior. And 4, it states the reward for safe behavior. Now, this is not put in there, but also avoids any accusation at all. It's just straight facts, good information. So again, number 1, it states what the unsafe behavior is. This is the problem right here, this behavior. It's not an attack on a person. It's just this behavior right here. That's unsafe. I'm not dealing with that anymore. It states what you need. This is what I need. I need the safe behavior. Number 3, it states the consequences for continued unsafe behavior. I'm not in the car with you anymore. And number 4, it states the reward for safe behavior. You sort the behavior out, boom, well, you can drive me around again. So there's your recipe for putting in place the 4 pieces of information that you need to put in place to set up a firm boundary, but it also shows the way back to connecting and the way back to a safe atmosphere without attacking or accusing anyone. Now, ooh, that's good stuff, guys. We are getting well through here. And I'll just give a little bit more personal stuff as well about Alana and I. So we obviously, one of the ways that we broke all of our trust, right? We'd kind of already broken all of our trust, and it was a lot of unsafe behavior in the bedroom, and it's not like there was no physical abuse or anything like that. It was just mainly my emotions and my emotionally punishing Alana and making her feel unsafe and just trying to punish her with my emotions, right? That was really the main thing, creating an unsafe atmosphere and judging her. And that was the real issue, was creating that sense of unsafety. So we're talking this through with the counselors, and unfortunately, the counselors didn't bust me. They didn't realize that I was actually the issue. They didn't see that. But what they did do is they gave us some advice, like, hey, you guys are obviously not getting your needs met, not your needs met. You're not getting your needs met. So why don't you create some boundaries here, right? Why don't you create some agreements around how you're going to meet each other's needs? And so Alana's like, sweet, the sensual pathway was something that she really valued, massages, non-sexual touch, all that. She's like, yes. And I was like, great, I'd like some sex nights. And so they said, negotiate those things out of what's going to work really well for you. So we negotiated them. We're like, cool. We came to an agreement, and then we completely ignored both of our agreements. Neither of us gave each other what we said we would give each other. We just completely stuffed it up, right? And we just broke all the trust. And it was actually, things were actually worse than before we didn't have agreements that we had broken, right? Because every single week now we had these agreements that we knew we had, which we were breaking every single week. So it was actually took things to a whole nother, even bigger mess. So here we are with this mess, and we're like, man, what are we going to do? So we started over, right? When I finally started to take ownership for how much of a mess I'd created, I started over, got real vulnerable. We had some more courageous conversations. So I worked really hard on taking control of me, on focusing what I could control, not what I couldn't. I couldn't control Alana, and that wasn't my job. So I had to control myself and take control of that. Had to get vulnerable. I identify that a lot of the reason why I was feeling unsafe was me, and take ownership for that. Then courageous conversations. Oh man, courageous conversations are not great, but we gave each other good information, and then we renegotiated our agreements, and we put healthy boundaries in place again for each other. But the second time round that we did that, we actually held to the boundaries. We held to the agreements. We stuck to it. And one thing I'll say about, if you're scheduling sex nights or things like that, for some people that works, for some people they think it's crazy, they don't think it works. For us, having agreements that actually put boundaries in place, they actually, remember, they're there. It's, in a sense, it's like training wheels when you've messed up, having boundaries and agreements like that. For us, that was like putting the training wheels back on a bike that we'd crashed lots of times, learning to, ride again. And then the boundaries became less and less necessary. The agreements became less and less necessary as a strict agreement of, we're going to have these sex nights, or we're going to have this and this. That became less necessary as we became more fluid and riding the bike, as we built trust again. Everything started becoming more organic. Now, if we and it's been like that for years now, it's just organic and beautiful. But if we had issues again, we'd have to go back to boundaries and agreements and kind of putting the training wheels back on. But that's what happens when things, a relationship is, the trust is broken or whatever. You've got to put the training wheels back on with the boundaries, and then see if someone's actually going to respond well to the healthy communication, confrontation, the boundaries. And when the boundaries are naturally happening, you kind of take the training wheels off and you start to fly again, which is great. So for us, healthy boundaries led the way home. And it's about, for us, it was about, we didn't just want to get back to survival. We wanted to create, something really beautiful, and that worked amazingly well for us. So we're right at the end now of the emotional pathway. Say emotional, right? So we're right at the end of the emotional pathway. Drop emotional in the comments. This has been a huge one. And really what it's about is, like getting the safe atmospheres and the communication skills and the healthy boundaries, and about all of that. What it's about is bringing us to this place where we're safe enough to let down all of our walls and be vulnerable, be completely exposed and completely embraced at the same time. Being completely transparent, completely exposed, completely embraced, all at the same time. And that is when we're able to really start experiencing real intimacy. Something that is worth highlighting about, even as you start getting more vulnerable, as you start feeling safer and putting boundaries in place, one of the things that for us was really key, because it can be quite tricky, right? And when we're creating the agreements around the boundaries for us. Now, this is not necessarily going to apply to every situation, but it did apply to us. And I think it applies more and more to married couples necessarily than others, is that you often have to negotiate what, it can apply to other relationships as well, but here it mainly directed at marriages initially, and see how you can apply it outside of that. But it is negotiation. Negotiation is so essential. And in order to negotiate well, you need good information from each other, but you also need to have a really, really generous spirit. And in the marriage context for us, what our book is about, the 7 Sacred Pathways, is about creating how to create a marriage where both people get exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation or control. So manipulation and control is one of the major factors that destroys safe atmospheres, is because people aren't trying to create safe atmospheres in a lot of times. In a lot of relationships, people aren't there to create safe atmospheres. They're there to manipulate and control and to take things from you, and they're there with selfish motivations. But if you're there to create a marriage or a relationship where both people get exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation or control, the only way that you can do that or build that is through generous negotiations. And generous negotiations are going to require that you've created this safe space, you've created a place of vulnerability, and in the place of vulnerability, there's a couple of major keys to really stewarding vulnerability well, and that comes into the next pathway. Okay, so once you've got that and you've got that vulnerability there, it actually sets you up to master the next pathway, which is the intellectual pathway. So stay with me. Sacred pathway number 3. This is the last of the foundational pathways. So we've looked at the spiritual pathway, the emotional pathway, and now we're getting into the intellectual pathway. And once we've got vulnerability in place, all those things in place, we're set up to master the intellectual pathway. And remember, we've looked at the spiritual pathway first, because that's your primary foundation. And then after you've got your primary foundation in place, if you don't get that spiritual pathway in place, then you're not good marriage material, right? You're not good relationship material anywhere, because you'll be living in the orphan illusion, a love deficit, the inability to receive or express divine love. You're going to be like chaos in any relationship. You sort that out. And then the next thing to get in place that builds systematically on top of that is the emotional pathway. You're set up for success there. You master this emotional pathway, and there's communicational skills and the ability to create safe atmospheres. And then you're set up for the next one, which is the intellectual pathway. And to be fair, like a lot of people never even mess with these. They don't build these, they don't set them up. So their 3 foundational pathways towards intimacy aren't even in place, and they wonder why marriages are blowing apart, at 50+% of marriages, because people don't even have these pathways in place that are going to be the foundation for their marriage to thrive, or any relationship to thrive, right? Any community, any relationship, if it doesn't have these 3 foundational pathways in place, it's set up for chaos. So the intellectual pathway, it determines how effective you are at loving. Well, in this term, in the book, it says in loving your spouse in the way that you personally want to be loved. In the way that they personally want to be loved. The intellectual pathway determines how effective you are at loving your spouse in the way that they personally want to be loved. But in context of outside of a marriage, the intellectual pathway determines how effective you are at loving other people. I'll give a bit of a warning about this pathway as well, is that you have to be really careful with what I'm going to share with you, because people who are narcissistic will try and turn this against you and create a really unhealthy relationship if they haven't got the foundations in place, right? If you haven't got the foundations, like good spiritual foundations, good emotional foundations, you're not there to manipulate or control. You're there to create a relationship where both people get what they want, when they want it, how they like it, without manipulation or control. If you're there to try to create a relationship like that, then this is great information. But if there's someone slips through the cracks and they're narcissistic and they're out there to manipulate and control, then they can interpret this information that I'm about to give you really badly. So I want to give you that warning on it, is that when it comes to negotiation, that's the key to creating a relationship where both people get exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation or control. But it requires a mutual willful submission, okay? A mutual willful submission. Because in one way, it's possible that you can create a marriage or a relationship where both people get what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation and control. And in other ways, it's not possible, in the sense that if you've got 2 people who want exactly the same thing, then it's going to be really easy to do that, in a sense like that. Or we both want this and we both want this and we both want this. That's great. But in our marriage, we both want lots of really different things, and we both want to go away and do things by ourselves. We want to do things together with each other. We want to do things together with the kids. We want to do things together with friends and family. And so there's all these different things that we want, for our lives, for our dreams, sex. We've talked about that, how you've got different, different preferences on that. And there's all these different things where we're different about. So how, and money, what are we going to do with this, and how are we going to spend this, and how are we going to pay that, all those things. How are you going to create a relationship where both people get exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation and control, when you're completely different people? Well, the only way that's going to be possible is through healthy negotiation. So say that with me, healthy negotiation. So the key to healthy negotiation, this is pretty dynamic, but the key to healthy negotiation is a really beautiful, generous, willful submission to one another. It's a biblical idea, right, of preferring one another. So sometimes I'm going to get what I want, and Alana's not going to get what she wants in that moment. But because she's so happy to see me get what I want in that moment, because she's so happy to prefer me in that moment, she's actually getting what she wants, which is to see me happy. So this dynamic of being able to create a relationship where both people get exactly what they want, when they want it, and how they like it, without manipulation or control, it's only possible if it's founded on this desire of really wanting the best for each other and being able to prefer one another and being selfless in the relationship. It's once the relationship gets to that point of being selfless, it's like, I'm so happy if you're winning that I am genuinely winning if you're winning. Like, I get so much joy out of seeing you get what you want, that I share that joy authentically and genuinely. I'm just so happy seeing you winning, that I'm winning just by watching you winning. It brings me so much joy to see your dreams coming alive. It brings me so much joy to see you thriving. It brings me so much joy to see you just enjoying life and getting what you want and living your best life. And I just feel so much joy from that I feel like I'm winning when you're winning. And so that's the foundation of being able to create this. And at the same time, there has to be balance there, right? Because if there isn't the balance there and one person keeps on getting what they want all the time, and that balance is out of whack, if someone starts exploiting that in any way, then all of a sudden one person's going to start feeling like, oh man, hey, this isn't actually mutual anymore, is it? You know, like, this is actually just about you getting what you want all the time. So it has to have that balance, a balance that comes on the top of this just absolute joy in seeing one another winning and thriving. And two keys for you in that process of how you're going to be able to negotiate really, really well. One is curiosity. Okay, so in a relationship, any type of relationship, if you want to build intimacy, you have to have a genuine curiosity about that person. If it's a marriage context, then you have this privilege of being able to actually become an expert on your partner. Like, you get to be able to be this expert who's like, hey, I want to be the world expert on you, on your desires, on what brings you joy, on the dreams that you have, on how I can serve you. So this curiosity is like a burning curiosity within you. And that's actually the responsibility if someone wants to create a relationship where both people get what they want, how they want it, both people get what they want, when they want it, and how they like it without manipulation or control. It requires each person to have a burning curiosity about, hey, I want to know you, I want to know your desires, I want to know you intimately. And so they're asking all these questions, they're searching them out, and they genuinely got this curiosity going on. But that curiosity has to be met again with vulnerability, because if someone's curious and asking you questions and wanting to be able to serve you well and love you well, and they're not met with this like transparent vulnerability that's actually like, okay, hey, you know what? This is the real desire of my heart, and it starts pouring out and coming out. If you don't give them good information in that time, then they've got nothing to work with. So it requires curiosity on both people's part, and then it requires complete transparency and vulnerability on both people's part as well. And it becomes this dance of hearing your desires and like expressing so you're asking what that person wants, you're hearing what they want, they're asking what you want, you're sharing what you want. So it's this beautiful, beautiful dance. And then in the midst of that dance of hearing each other's dreams and wildest desires and fantasies and just hopes and little things that they like and preferences and all of this kaleidoscope of desire, and meeting that mutually, it's in that place that you're like, oh, wow, like, how can I serve you? How can I bring this, how can I make this happen? So there's this really beautiful dance going on. Great Danny's silk quote here is, the first goal of conversation, understanding, not agreement. So Danny Silk, great quote there about conversation, curiosity, talking. Hey, we're about understanding here, not necessarily about agreement. That's a good conflict resolution one, actually, when you're figuring things out. But this journey, it gets so exciting because you get to this place where, like, man, I'm just figuring out exactly how I can love you well. And that's what intellectual intimacy comes from, is this process of figuring out, how can I effectively love you? That's where the 5 love languages comes in as well. A classic mistake is, when you're loving other people, you love them the way that you want to be loved rather than figuring out exactly how they want to be loved. So we're not going to go deep in the 5 love languages, but I'll just give you the headlines of them. They're words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, receiving gifts. So that's the 5 love languages. One thing where I made a mistake that's worth sharing is in love languages, I interpreted touch as sex. I was like, sweet, if a person's like a a person's a touch person, they're a sex person. So Alana's a touch person too, but what is different about the 7 sacred pathways process to the 5 love languages, we actually make a distinction between the sensual pathway and the sexual pathway and really clarify that there's 2 completely different pathways, because I actually ruined touch for Alana. Like, I ruined touch in general because all I ever wanted was, sexual touch. I was like, sweet, if we're touching, then that's going somewhere, right? Whereas Alana was like, no, I'd be pretty happy just with a massage and then, no sex afterwards. And I was like, oh, what? Oh, so I had no real grasp of the sensual pathway. And so I had to go, flip the sensual pathway. So this is part as well. Intellectual intimacy is figuring out from each other, oh, hey, what type of physical touch do you like? Don't you like? Alana really likes massages. And her favorite massage is a massage when I give her a massage and then I don't try and pull any other moves afterwards. I just give her a massage for the sake of me giving her a massage. That's what's going to make her feel the most loved. So oftentimes she'll get a full body massage and then we'll go straight to bed and I won't pull any moves on her or initiate any sex or anything. I'm just like, sweet, this is something I know that she will just love a massage and then to go straight to sleep after a massage. So I know that she likes that, so she'll get that and then just go straight to sleep, and that makes her feel absolutely loved. But I missed that whole dynamic of the sensual pathway. And because I missed that dynamic of the sensual pathway, it kind of made all touch feel unsafe for her because it was just always wanting sexual. And she was like, hey, there's this whole world of sensual touch that we're missing out that I'm not getting. So once we figured that out, I was able to start really loving her a lot better and serving her in that way with getting sensual touch back into our relationship. So that's actually that's the 4th sacred pathway to intimacy, is the sensual pathway. We're not going to spend too much time on that. That's kind of like the gist of it. Quick overview on that for you. The next one, we go into the make it or break it pathways. Okay, so there's 3 left. The financial pathway, the leadership pathway, and the sexual pathway. So the financial pathway is actually, we're going to cover that in our next session. We're going to do a whole session on kingdom economics. So we're skipping the financial pathway, and that will be in our next session. We will cover finances in depth. It's going to be absolutely fantastic session for you on kingdom economics. It'll cover that in depth. So we're going straight now to sacred pathway number 6. So say number 6. And this is the leadership pathway. Give you a leadership quote from a guy, John C. Maxwell. Let me know if you know John C. Maxwell. Just drop Maxwell in the comments if you know John C. Maxwell. John C. Maxwell is one of the best guys on leadership in the world. And here's a quote from him. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership. Leadership in your relationship is going to determine the entire dynamic of that relationship. And there are 3 classic types of leadership that come into play in relationships. Okay, so say 3 types of leadership. And we're going to look at these 3 types of leadership. The first one is powerful people. And this is hugely significant in the process of creating authentic expressions of heaven, because you can't this is the only one, this is the only type of leadership style that actually works to create authentic expressions of heaven on earth. But it's probably one of the least, probably, as you might have guessed, what a surprise, it's like the least common. So powerful people. So say with me, powerful people. We're going to come back to that. I'm just going to list for you. The second one is codependent relationships, okay? Codependent relationships. And the third type of relationship is the power struggle relationship. So there's 3 different leadership styles, or ways that people seek to gain influence or express influence in a relationship. So when some people hear the term powerful people, they hear the word power and they associate it with danger, right? Like someone's going to get dominant, like someone's going to try and take control. But that is not what we mean at all in the context here of powerful people. So let me redefine for you what a truly powerful person is like. So a truly powerful person is secure in their identity. And a truly powerful person is a person who's gone on a spiritual journey and broken the false agreements that create identity crisis, that create, distorted feelings, unsafe, untamed brains, unsafe chemical reactions and unsafe emotions and unsafe behaviors. A powerful person is a person who's gone on that spiritual journey and actually broken all those false agreements. They've established an accurate image of God. They've actually established a great agreements about their identity. They discovered they're exclusively defined by the Trinity. So they've built that spiritual pathway. Then they've gone and they've mastered the emotional pathway. They've mastered the intellectual pathway. And they're like, wow, this person is great marriage material. If you're married and if you're not married and you're looking for someone, look for a powerful person, right? They're a person who's going to carry love and honor. They're a person who's not going to permit people to treat them with outside of love and honor. They're going to actually be a confrontational person, because if someone steps into treating them badly, they'll talk to them, they'll communicate with them, they'll have the best in mind for the other person. They'll be a generous negotiator. They'll understand healthy boundaries. So this is the powerful person that I'm talking about. And a powerful person is the only type of person that can create an authentic expression of heaven on earth. So let me know if you think it might be important to have some powerful people in our churches, and to get rid of all this like orphan dysfunction that's producing, like all these unsafe churches, unsafe environments that don't have an authentic expression of heaven in them. One of the reasons why we don't have so many authentic expressions of heaven is because we don't have so many powerful people. Now, because creating authentic expressions of heaven on earth, it requires powerful people walking in their identity, walking in sonship, receiving love, divine love perfectly, expressing divine love perfectly. What you need, right, is you need more than one of those people to expand the dance. So what expanding the dance, right, is going to actually look like, is going to actually look like creating powerful people. It's bringing people into this place of understanding their sonship, helping them to understand, oh, hey, there's a spiritual pathway, there's an emotional pathway, there's an intellectual pathway. We need communication skills. We need all this stuff. So actually building and establishing all those things in place into people has got to become a key part of our discipleship to actually build powerful people, because it's the kingdom of heaven is established on earth through the beautiful relationships and the beautiful relational dynamic that takes place between powerful people. Remember, orphans, they have there's this inability to receive divine love or give perfect expression to divine love. So what you've got with them is all this chaos and dysfunction and an inability to receive it. There's no resonance with the divine dance. There's no authentic expression of heaven on earth. So we've got all these churches, all these orphans, and next to no powerful people and hardly any authentic expressions of heaven on earth. But we are changing that. So drop change in the comments if you're excited about that. Drop powerful people in the comments if you're excited about becoming a powerful person. So We talk, with the love languages, people have love tanks as well. And your love language is going to help you fill up your love tanks. But some people end up with leaky love tanks, and they become really needy, and they haven't figured out how to actually fill up their love tank in their relationship with God. Well, that's not a powerful person, right? A powerful person has figured out how to ensure that their love tank is topped right up just through their relationship with God. So they're not leaky, needy, desperate to extract love out of people for their own survival. They're already living in a love overflow, a love baptism that's flowing up from within them through their relationship with the Trinity. Now, that's powerful people, okay? Let me give you some definitions of how powerful people operate. Powerful people do not manipulate or control. And I would like you to say yes or no if you would like, just drop that in the comments, if you would like these attributes in a leader in an organization that you're a part of, right? Say there's a church, and just say this: would you like these attributes in a pastor in a church that we went to? Okay, so number one, powerful people do not manipulate or control. For me, yes, I don't want manipulation or control. Powerful people are secure people. Do you want that? Yes or no? Yes, for me. Powerful people create safe atmospheres. Do you want would you want a leader who could create safe atmospheres? Yes, for me. Powerful people are trustworthy. That's a yes for me. Powerful people are vulnerable people. I want that. Powerful people have healthy boundaries. Yes, I want that. Powerful people are generous negotiators. Yes, I want that. Okay, so I think I'd be surprised if you guys had anything else other than like an agreement with that, because that is what our hearts are longing for and desiring. That's what we're after. It takes two powerful people to create an authentic expression of heaven on earth, to start building community. So that's what we are going after. And I'll say that in the economy of powerful people, right? In the economy of powerful people, the level of trust that they walk in together, when there's power, when there's two powerful people, they don't even have to be married, right? But when there's two powerful people in a relationship together, and they've understood how to create safe atmospheres, how to walk in love and honor, how to treat each other with trust and respect, how to confront and communicate safely, and to establish healthy boundaries and to negotiate generously, and then build that trust and build that vulnerability and build that intimacy. In the economy of powerful people like that, trust opens the door to willful submission. This is such a huge place to come to in a relationship, a place of willful submission, and the honor of leadership becomes a beautiful dance of serving and being served in the context of love and generosity. I'll just say that one more time, but in the economy of powerful people, trust opens the door to willful submission, and the honor of leadership becomes a beautiful dance of serving and being served in the context of love and generosity. Oh, juicy. So we're going to contrast that right now with codependent relationships. When we have our understanding of power corrupted, we are in danger of being in a codependent relationship or a power struggle relationship. So until we rediscover our power and how to function as a powerful person, we will not be able to maintain a healthy, intimate relationship. The cause of someone losing their power is always spiritual, right? It always comes from a false agreement somewhere. So someone creates a false agreement. You guys understand the trace, face, and replace. Now you understand the root and the fruit dynamic, that if someone creates an unhealthy agreement, boom, it's going to turn into some dysfunctional behavior. So codependent relationships are when a person has come to the conclusion that somehow they're inadequate, right? They've come to this false identity conclusion. I'm inadequate, I'm unworthy. And maybe there's a stack of lies. So lies stack on top of each other, right? And they build momentum that way. So the first lie or the first agreement could be, I'm inadequate and unworthy, right? And then on that, there's another lie stacked on top, which is, because I'm inadequate and unworthy, what I have to say is not important, okay? And then another lie comes and stacks on top of that is, because what I have to say is not important, it's best if I keep my thoughts to myself, all right? And then another lie comes and stacks on top of that, because it's best that I keep my thoughts to myself, I should let other people make my decisions for me. Boom. Okay, so all this can be happening subconsciously, unconsciously, and that person who makes those agreements with those lies is positioned to become a passive aggressive person. And what they will do is they'll say yes, to every idea. They'll become a yes man or a yes woman. They're like, yes, that's great. And they're letting everyone else make their decisions for them. But secretly, a passive aggressive person starts to resent people for controlling them all the time. Now that's a misperception, because people aren't controlling them all the time. They've taken no ownership for their own life. They're not making any decisions. They're asking everyone to make their decisions for them, but they are misperceiving it, and they're perceiving it as, even though they're saying yes all the time, they're saying yes to things that they don't want to do, but they're just saying yes because they don't feel like they have a voice, and as a result, they resent people for controlling them. So that right there is a classic example of what a passive aggressive relationship looks like. And you can imagine that in a passive aggressive relationship, you've got one person who's slightly more dominant in this passive aggressive codependent relationship. You'll get one person who's like, oh, well, you don't want to make the decisions. Well, I'll make all the decisions and you just toe the line. So one person's making all the decisions all the time. The other person's just saying, yes, 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 yes. And then eventually it gets too much, right? So each time they're saying yes, the resentment's building, and then they punish back, right? Passive aggressively. Maybe they go silent, or they give the, I'm not talking to you, or they find these other ways to punish, which are not quite so aggressive, but they're still punishing them all the time. And the dominant leader, that actually enables both people, right? It enables the passive aggressive person, and it enables the dominant person who's manipulating and control, and possibly a narcissist. And because they're both enabling one another, it starts fueling, and the momentum on it starts spiraling. And the dominant partner could become, and they could be an addict or a narcissist or an abuser, or someone with a real strong need for control and manipulation. And the other person's like submissive, and they've got saying yes, but they've got all these passive aggressive punishment tactics going on, and they're withholding vulnerable information or withholding affection. And it's possible for the submissive partner to develop depression or health issues as direct results and symptoms of their restricted power and the power imbalance in their relationship. There you go. That's codependent relationships for you. The other relationship is power struggle, which really doesn't need all that much, description. It's when you've got two couples who both, they both want to wear the pants, in a sense. They're both trying to be dominant. They're both trying to manipulate and control. And instead of being passive, one person being passive aggressive about it, they're actually fighting about it. All right. So I'm just going to give you, what was I going to add? I'm going to add something onto this for you. So when they get caught in a power struggle, you can get caught in a power struggle where both spouses are constantly using all sorts of tactics, okay, and strategies to manipulate and gain influence, control, and leadership in the relationship. So they may sometimes choose to negotiate, but it doesn't usually end up with a beautiful power sharing dynamic. It tends to result often in a territorial debate, well, I'll control this area of the relationship, and I'll control this area of the relationship. But there's still this fighting for control all the time. So that is that is the power struggle relationships. And we're going to finish the sixth. I'll finish it with this, is that when you're in a relationship, or you actually have to go on a leadership journey. Okay, you're going to actually have to develop this dynamic of leadership. So this leadership pathway is the fourth pathway that actually applies to any relationships. All right, it's not just in a marriage context, but there's leadership styles, and you want to really grow and start, sowing into leadership. But leadership can be a spectrum. Okay, so this is one thing I just want to finish on as we finish with leadership styles here, is that leadership is a spectrum, right? You can have from a total like dictator through to a democracy, and then through to what's called like laissez-faire, or someone where there's like no leadership at all. So it's a leadership spectrum. And some people, they think, well, I'm one of these types of leaders, or I'm one of these types of leaders. And that's actually a mistake, because you don't have to be any type of leader. And if you choose one of those types of leadership and say, this is the type of leader that I am, then you only be right in certain situations. In other situations, your leadership will be really destructive. Instead of thinking yourself in terms of, I'm this type of leader, think of yourself as a leader who can slide up and down the leadership spectrum, right? For example, if our house has caught on fire in the night, I am going to become a complete dictator, all right? I would be jumping up out of bed. I would run. I would grab the kids. I would run outside. I'd run to safety. I'd get them out. I wouldn't be asking their permission. I'd be shouting orders. I'd be grabbing them. I'd be taking them, be throwing them out of the house, like, get to safety, That would be the perfect time to be a dictator. But try that on Christmas Day, right? Where it's not really that important. We kind of like cruising, getting out of bed. We're going to like do some presents and stuff. And one person's running around the house like a mad dictator. Well, that being a dictator right there is going to be completely destructive in that context. So you're better off to being like a Democrat in that context. Like, hey guys, do you want to, have breakfast first, or should we open presents? What do you guys want to do? And they're like, oh, hey, let's do breakfast, and then have some presents. Actually, let's have some presents and then some breakfast. And, so you can just have a democracy, chat it out, talk it through. There's a leadership spectrum that you can slide up and down. And then say, for example, after Christmas, maybe you're at the beach after Christmas. And it's just a lovely, we'll just say it's a lovely, where we are in New Zealand, Christmas is always summer. So you might be like going to the beach at Christmas, but we have summer. So it's a classic thing for people to do at Christmas, is just go to the beach, enjoy a hot, sunny day. So just say it's maybe not, Christmas might wreck it for you, but just say it's a sunny day. You're at the beach with the family. There's no time restrictions. You've got the whole day. You know what? You don't even need a leadership style there. It's just kind of like chill out. Maybe if you're parenting, that might be a different scenario, but say it's with your friends, you're all just hanging out there. You've got hours. There's no rush to be anywhere. You don't need a leadership style, really. You're just like, okay, chill out. But if you became a dictator in that context and started ordering everyone, right now, everyone's sunbathing. Right now, everyone's swimming. I mean, you can see how if you choose the wrong leadership style at the wrong moment, you can completely blow the situation up. Or say the house was on fire and you're like, oh, okay, well, you kids do what you want. We'll just chill. You're going to get burnt alive in that context. So that's the last thing I'll say about leadership for now. And we are going to jump to the final pathway. All right, so this is the last pathway. This is the sexual pathway. It's sacred pathway number 7, which is wild. So you guys are doing amazing. Well done, everyone. Massive sessions in this series to get through all the content, but you're doing so well. So congratulations, doing absolutely amazing. And we are at the very end now of the 7 sacred pathways. So we're getting to this final one, which is the sexual pathway. And we'll cover this one for the value of those who are in marriage, or you're just like, okay, we'll just tell me about this sexual pathway. So let me just run through it. a little bit I've shared with you guys, a bit about our story. But I'm just going to give you some generic stuff about sex as well. So I will say something that, when it comes to sex and sexuality, this is a place where Satan uses it to get a lot of traction around shame in our lives. And just drop in the comments shame if you know what I'm talking about. There's so many reasons why people pick up shame in the area of sexuality. Sometimes it's from comparison, or maybe it's from abuse, or maybe it's just from something terrible that happened in that story, or that part of our story, or a fear of some sort. But it becomes a real major area where shame gets to build up, and people kind of don't want to talk about it and avoid it and hide it, and it seems embarrassing, and so there comes a lot of darkness over the whole area of sex and sexuality in the church, and in a lot of our lives, we're just kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? And so I just thought, hey, let's touch on this, and maybe we can help create a bit of a safe space here for people to actually start breaking some agreements with lies. There's a great quote in 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And I mean, when it comes to the sexual journey, so maybe things that you've done or you haven't done, or things that have been done to you, or things that haven't been done to you, or things that have been said about you, can be all manner of reasons. But people's sexuality is having a huge impact in the world. Like in marriages, it tears up a massive amount of marriages. So let's just hit up right now. Let's hit 7 common sex issues in marriage. Okay, so say sex issues. All right, we're going to hit 7 sex issues. So one of the greatest ones ever is affairs. All right, but affairs don't just happen out of the blue. Affairs, when a marriage is thriving, that's not when an affair is going to happen. An affair is going to happen when the marriage is already weak. And when a marriage is already weak, it's vulnerable to an affair. Song of Songs has a good quote. It says, "Catch for us the little foxes, the foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom." And really what what's speaking about is just taking care of the little things, because if we end up getting lots of little things happening in a marriage that create disconnection here and disconnection here, and something's dysfunctional over here, and we've got an issue over here, feeling unsafe over here, and we haven't dealt with that, and we've got a fire over here. Well, those dynamics are like little foxes, and sooner or later, if you don't take care of them, all of a sudden you can start feeling this real sense of disconnection in a relationship, and that is when affairs start striking in. Is when there's already that crack in there, and there's a lack of trust, and that lack of trust leads to suspicion, and you start pulling back, and so there is all of a sudden a person who's been married for 20 years who feels more alone than ever before and completely isolated and in darkness, and then maybe they go online and start looking for something and find someone online, and maybe they go over here and meet someone, and someone makes an offer, and it kind of opens up like that. Now, that's not the only time affairs happen. There's some people, pretty dodgy people out there, who a person thinks that their marriage is great and the other person's actually all over town. So so it's a little bit crazy, but affairs is one of the big ones. We're going to hit number 2. Okay, so our second sex issue is porn. Get ready for some crazy stats. Okay, so drop crazy stats in the comments if you're ready for some crazy stats. So porn. The scope of the issues surrounding porn in our generation are staggering, and these issues are invading millions of marriages. All right, here's some American porn stats gathered by the Barna Group and also by the Covenant Eyes Research Group. The first 2 statistics I want to look at show how big the porn issue is and how little support is available. Okay, so 57% of pastors said that porn addicts were the single porn addictions were the single most damaging issue in their church. All right, let's say that again. 57% of pastors said that porn addictions were the single most damaging issue in their church. 69% of pastors stated that porn has had a negative impact on the church. This is kind of crazy, though, the next one. Only 7% of pastors said that their church provides any form of support to people who are struggling with porn. So you've got 57% of pastors saying that porn addictions were the most damaging issue in their church, right? So this is the biggest problem that churches are facing. How crazy is that, right? That is a big deal. And then only 7% of pastors said that their church provided any support to people who are struggling with that. And that leaves 50% of churches where their biggest issue is porn and they aren't doing anything about it. Now, here's a crazy thing that might help you understand why those churches aren't doing anything about it. Is that 68% of men who attend church regularly and more than 50% of pastors admitted to observing pornography on a consistent basis. All right, so you've got 50% of churches where the pastor hasn't organized anything to help all these people suffering from porn, and it's their greatest problem in their whole church. And one of the reasons why is because over 50% of pastors admitted to a pornography issue and consistently viewing porn. 76% of Christian young adults between ages of 18 to 24 said they search for and watch porn on a consistent basis. 76%. Okay, now where is this all coming from? This is ultimately the sexual dysfunction. People behave according to what they believe, right? So what we've been talking about the whole time about agreements with our image of God and agreements around our identity, it's all now blowing up in sexual dysfunction, sexual addictions. According to the study, over 50% of pastors themselves are struggling with porn. 55% of married men and 25% of married women admitted to watching porn at least on a monthly basis. 47% of American families acknowledge that porn is a consistent problem in their household. Intense, right? 56% of American divorces recorded one spouse as having an obsessive interest in porn sites. All right, that's crazy. 56% of American divorces record obsessive interest in porn sites as one of the major issues for their breakup. All right, here's another issue, the next one, moving on from porn. So, I mean, that's just that porn addiction, that dynamic really highlights the massive necessity to be taking some serious responsibility for this and extreme ownership for our journey, right? In terms of our agreements with God, our agreements, our false agreements around the image of God, and our agreements around our identity. Because when we sort that out, we start getting free from this stuff. It starts melting off. Whereas you got all these people trying to treat the symptom, trying to deal with the porn, and then not actually taking ownership for or dealing with the root issues that's actually producing this, which is the identity chaos and dysfunction that people are trapped in. And when we do that, it's been beautiful to watch the amazing freedom that comes in people's lives when they actually start stepping into their sonship. The next one, okay, is called, the next one of 6 sex issues, and the list is a low sex drive and not being in the mood for sex. So a little bit of a confession moment for you guys. Once is, I bought a Christian book, right? Now, this was a Christian book, but a pretty funky title, How to Turn Your Wife into a Nymphomaniac by Carl Zorro. Okay, so, but there's also another book, right, with the same title, and it's called, well, almost the same title. There's another book called How to Turn Your Wife into a Raving Nymphomaniac by Mike Riley. Now, I accidentally clicked on that one once. Don't click on that one, okay? How to Turn Your Wife into a Nymphomaniac by Carl Zorro is a Christian one. It was actually really amazing relationship advice that really helped me a lot. But How to Turn Your Wife into a Raving Nymphomaniac by Mike Riley, don't accidentally click on that. Like it was like, oh, hang on, I'm in the wrong place. So I had to get out of there pretty quick. So Carl Zorro's book was just amazing about helping guys to take extreme ownership for how they're treating their wives and some of the issues that cause a low level in sex drive. So here's 10 things that can reduce someone's sex drive. First of all, unsafe atmospheres. And that, right, unsafe atmospheres was one of the biggest killers of Alana's sex drive. And I was the one that was doing it. I was the one that was creating the unsafe atmospheres, blaming her for the problems when it was really me. But as soon as I dealt with that unsafe atmosphere and created a safe atmosphere, what do you know? Her sex drive came back. She wasn't in this place of feeling unsafe all the time. And her sex drive was able to come back alive, which is fantastic. The second one here on the list is narcissism. Narcissism is basically blindness. So it doesn't matter how much chaos a person's creating, the problem is never them, right? And it's convenient if you're a narcissist because it means you don't ever have to deal with your own attitude and you get to blame everyone else. Nasty, right? So that was me as well, right? That was my narcissism in our relationship that I couldn't see I was creating any of the problems. I was blaming Alana for everything, and I was behaving like everything was her fault. And what do you know? That's no good for a sex drive either, right? That's going to kill the sex drive. So third one, stress. Stress. And we were actually under a lot of stress, and really, to be fair with Alana, she had 3 little kids. And then after Ezra, she actually got postnatal depression. We recognize that in hindsight. Ezra was an extremely difficult baby. There was hardly any sleep. Breastfeeding was terrible. He had a tongue tie that wasn't diagnosed till later. So breastfeeding was extremely painful. She did feed him all the way through, even though she championed it through it. We were living at the other end of the country from our family, so we didn't have much support. Our finances were an absolute, we just didn't have any finances really. It was a bit of a mess there. And these conversations all the way, the same dead-end conversation and all the stress, right? So Alana had tons of stress. When I started taking ownership for my mess and tidying that up, the stress started to chill out. We started to also taking ownership for our finances. The stress there started to chill out. Our kids started growing up a little bit. We started getting a little bit more sleep in our system. We actually ended up moving closer to family as well. All these things started coming off, and as all the stress came off, then man, it was amazing for our sex life. Emotional connection. This is an area that requires continual investment, right? If there's no strong emotional connection, it can sabotage a relationship, but a strong emotional connection can completely flip the script and put someone right in the mood. Parenting pressure, that's a huge one, right? That can just really mess with people in a big way. Lack of sleep, constant demands, for Alana as well. She always had someone needing her, wanting to cuddle her, climb on her, be breastfed or something. So there's just all this pressure with parenting as well, which can really drop the sex drive. So you're going to have to be really creative with that if you want to resolve that. Maybe it's babysitters or it's getting extra help. But for Alana, she just felt like she was completely touched out. So that's something that you have to negotiate, navigate, problem solve, and on a case-by-case basis. But hormones. So for men, low testosterone in men and hormone imbalances in women can cause a low sex drive. For women, a balanced diet, exercise, good sleep, reduced sugar, and avoiding inflammatory foods can help with hormone production and increase sex drive. And for men with low testosterone, it's not quite so easy to deal with that. You kind of need to go and consult a specialist about what you need to do for yourself for there. Next one is bored with your sex life. So sometimes after being married for a while, people can get bored of the same sex. So here's a few tips for you. And these are not my tips. These are tips from some sex experts who recommend, these few tips for bringing some fire back into a boring sex life. Make a weekly sex date. Spontaneous sex doesn't always happen, so schedule some. That's what they're saying. Number 2 is stop having sex for a while and explore other ways of pleasuring each other that are non-sexual or sexual. Number 3, give your spouse very good information. It doesn't matter if you've told them before. Talk to them about all the little things that turn you on sexually and get you boiling like a kettle. Okay, number 4. If you are the partner who does less of the initiating, take the lead and initiate sex as soon as possible. And I won't be offended if, like you drop off the live or pause the training for a little bit. Number 5, take a trip down memory lane and talk to them about all your favorite sexual experiences together. Okay, so there's a few little tips from some sex experts on, for people who are bored with their sex life. Here's another one, which is a big deal, is sex is evil. So in a lot of Christian, I don't know if it's a lot, it's getting less and less, but there's a number of Christian movements that have been around. Most of these are like quite like traditional old school movements that actually teach people that sex is evil. And it goes all the way back to the 4th century. There was a guy, Jerome and Augustine, and they both began a false teaching that married people were second-class citizens because they had sex, but celibate priests belonged to a higher class. That's where that lie started being taught all the way back in the 4th century. And so that if you're growing up in one of those movements that are part of that belief, even though they may not teach that exactly, they still have these Augustinian beliefs, these Calvinistic beliefs that actually can cause people to pick up this mindset that sex is evil. And so it's worth sometimes seeing a sex therapist or talking to a professional about that. It's actually a major cause for women who either struggle to orgasm or who've never orgasmed at all, is because of the belief that sex is evil, that they're raised in that. Here's another one. I just don't enjoy sex. So if one spouse doesn't enjoy sex as much as the other, then things can totally reach a stalemate. I know a couple that they didn't have sex for 30 years. And the marriage eventually died, but probably they lived in a really dysfunctional marriage for way too long. One of those Christian relationships where they never confront, they never deal with anything. They just like passive aggressive type stuff when they should have actually communicated, had some boundaries, put something in place, but they didn't, right? It was pretty dysfunctional. So after 30 years of marriage with no sex, it ended sadly and tragically. And the interesting thing is that guy was doing one of our schools and he got remarried. And they're this really old couple and they're kind of like in this honeymoon phase and they're like, yeah, our sex life is great, which is pretty funny. Next one is I need some adventure. I'm sure you didn't forget that, I bought that book. So I bought that book, How to Turn Your Wife into a Nymphomaniac by Carl Zaro. And one of the things that he said there was a great tip that I got that really helped me, and something that I focus on regularly and just a way of loving Alana, is that he said, make sure that your wife, is doing things that absolutely exhilarate them and that give them a place of great adventure. So I always try and make sure that Alana's got that element of adventure and exhilaration in her life, and it's got a win-win for me as well. Another reason why sex, this is the next one. So we're moving on now from a low sex drive to the next sex issue in marriage, which is weaponized sex. So in a codependent marriage, or a marriage with a power struggle, or an abusive marriage, sex can become weaponized and used selfishly or to punish the other partner. So it can either be done by withholding sex or using it as a tool for manipulation or through adultery or rape, but sex can be weaponized. And if sex has become weaponized in any relationship, professional support should be sought immediately, right? You need to talk to someone right away. Next one on the list of sex issues in marriage is painful sex and health issues. And again, for this one, you're just going to need to consult a therapist or a health specialist to figure out what the options are for you to resolve that, but don't just live with it. Go and consult someone. It's not supposed to be painful. That's something that might be a treatment there for you. So I've got another couple of things here. So in this area of like health issues or painful sex there's like some headlines here of things, because sometimes health issues either reduce people's ability to have sex or just take it out completely. And what you want to do if you're in that space is avoid the mindset that we've got this and we can work it out alone. Okay, so that's a space that if you're in that space, definitely get help, get someone in there and work together to discover as well, you know, like that negotiation, what sexual activities are still options, and be generous negotiators. So the next one under the category of painful sex and health issues is actually just painful sex. So it's not supposed to be painful, but the Sexual Advice Bureau in the UK reports that a third of younger women and half of older women have experienced pain during sex. Apart from using lots of lube, it's suggested that you seek professional help, all right, because it's not supposed to be painful. All right, here's one that's a little bit dynamic and one that you might not hear that much about, but it's a real issue, is problems with orgasm. Now, I was like shocked when I read this, but men and women can experience problems with reaching an orgasm. It's much less common for men. However, for women, the inability to reach orgasm is surprisingly high. Since studies began in 1948, these statistics have been confirmed over and over again. During sex, men reach orgasm on average 95% of the time. And according to Psychology Today and ABC News, only 25% of women ever reach orgasm through vaginal sex alone. Okay, so only 25% of women actually reach orgasm through vaginal sex alone. 10 to 15% of women never reach orgasm at all. And all those in between only reach orgasm if stimulated by fingers, tongues, or sex equipment. Erectile dysfunction. Erectile dysfunction increases with age. The Journal of Sexual Medicine published that 26% of men under the age of 40 have issues with erectile dysfunction. Erectile dysfunction is increasingly common with people who regularly view porn, and they've delved so heavily into the sexual fantasy realms that when a real woman is present, they can't actually get an erection. Premature ejaculation. The International Journal of Impotence reports that up to 30% of men worldwide suffer from premature ejaculation. That's a pretty big deal. There's if you grab this book, there's some links in this book as well to like places that people can go to get solutions for this. There's a book called Intended for Pleasure, Sex Technique and Sexual Fulfillment in Christian Marriage. That's by Dr. Ed Wheat and his wife, Gay Wheat, and that has some cool solutions for people there as well. So, Ben, that's pretty much everything there. That's the 7 sacred pathways to intimacy, and we have covered it. So that's all the content there that we're going to cover on the 7 sacred pathways to intimacy. Our next session is kingdom economics. So we're looking to finances, and not specifically in marriage, but we'll be looking at kingdom economics, which is going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that session with you guys in the next session. So hopefully where we've kind of come to with this is you've got a really clear picture of the 4 sacred pathways that are absolutely essential in the process of creating authentic expressions of heaven in any community or relationship, which is the spiritual, the emotional, the intellectual, and the leadership. Those are your 4 pathways that have to be mastered in any context. And then if you're in a marriage or wanting to get married, then those 7 sacred pathways are the ones that you've got to really master those to make sure that your marriage is on point. We're going to wrap it up right there, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next session as we hit up kingdom economics. Let me pray for you. And I just know as well that, you know, people are on really different journeys. There's shame, there's pain. If people have been through marriage breakups or all sorts of things, what we've shared about today can bring up a lot of different dynamics. So let me pray for you, just that the grace of God will be with us all as we journey through this. So Papa, Jesus, Holy Spirit, we love you and we bless you and we thank you for your amazing goodness to us. We thank you for holding our hand, for journeying with us. We thank you, Holy Spirit, for going real deep. Holy Spirit, we thank you for exposing our conscious and our subconscious and our unconscious agreements that produce shame. We thank you for going with us through all these dynamics of relationship and sex and leadership and all these pathways to intimacy. And we welcome you, Holy Spirit, just to go deep, deep, deep in us, to leave no stone unturned, and to do whatever it takes in us to bring us to places of freedom and to raise us up as powerful people who have that ability and that capacity to create authentic expressions of heaven on earth. Lord, we thank you for this journey. I thank you that grace upon grace will come to every person in this place. I thank you that the depths of your love will fill people and wash over them and flood them in your beautiful name. Amen. Amen, fam. Bless you, and we'll see you in the next session for Kingdom Economics, our next sacred secret to living in the divine life. Bless you, fam. Bye-bye.